Hey everyone, welcome to the Let's Create series, a series where we'll cover mechanics from popular games using blueprints. Today we'll be covering Hanzo and Genji's wall climb from Overwatch. If this is your first time watching this series, make sure to watch the foundation video that I've linked in the description. Let's begin, and we're going to start off with, once again, duplicating the FPS controller. And this is going to be, I'm just going to call this Hanzo controller, because you might already have a Genji controller from the first episode that you put in here. And we're going to begin covering the wall climb. Now, because we already have the input action for jump, which is spacebar put in the game, and when you play Overwatch, when you jump and you hold jump, you climb up a wall, we don't need to add any extra inputs. We can just use the jump we already have. And what we're going to start off with is an event tick. And we are going to go into a line trace by channel. And what this does is it will cast a line directly, well, depending on where we set it up, but for our purposes, we're going to cast a line directly in front of us. When this line hits a surface, such as a wall that might have the tag climbable, so we can actually climb up it, and we're holding space, you will climb up that wall. So this is the collision detection for whether or not we can climb up a wall. In order to figure out where we want it to start, we want it to start from the player's body, so from the center of the player controller. So we're going to get the actor location for the start, and when it comes to the end, we need to set that up in the viewport. So we're just going to click here and create a scene object, which is kind of like an empty game object if you're from Unity. And this can be our our line end location. And I just want to bring this out a little bit, something like that. So when the character's this close to a wall, they can climb up it. If you really want, you can make it closer, but for testing, this is fine. We don't need to do anything else, so just compile that and go back to the event graph. Now we can drag in the line end location. And then we can get the world location of this, of our scene object. The reason why I got the world location is because this is asking for a vector. And if you want, you can debug it, but I'm not going to. We're then going to drag this out. Oh, actually, let's debug it for now. I've tested this before, but we'll just debug it. So we'll just do it for a duration. We're then going to drag this out, and we're going to branch because we need a condition. We don't want to climb up every single wall. So in order to figure out our condition, what we need to do is we need to split this split struct pin. This will give us way more options than are available. Usually these two options might be enough, but sometimes when you right click on one of these actions, you can split it and get way more. Now, I know this looks a bit overwhelming, but these are all just different options available that we can use, and you'll find these super useful. And what we're actually going to do is, when we hit another actor, we want to check its tag. So the one we're going to use is out hit actor, and then we're going to use the node actor has tag. Now what this is going to do is check what tag has been given to an actor, which I'm going to show you how to set up the tags in a moment. When this line hits an object, if it doesn't have the tag, we're going to use climbable. It will not go through this branch, and we will not be able to climb up the object. The reason why I'm doing it like this is because you might want in your game different surfaces that you can climb and can't climb. So if you did want another way of checking whether you can climb up a surface, this is where you would set that up. For this tutorial, we're just going to use the simple system of tagging. The next thing we want to do is we want to create a variable, because when you use Hanzo or Genji in Overwatch, there is only a small amount of time you can climb for. This variable, you could probably guessed it, is the climb time. Now this isn't a boolean because the time we want to have a decimal point, so we're going to use a float, not an integer. and we're just going to compile, and we are going to use our get player controller because the player controller has a really nice node built for us already. This node is called get input key time down. So we can actually track how long the player has been pressing a key for. In this case, if we check how long they've been pressing space for, we can store this value. And then we can check if they've been pressing space for more than like, say, 2 seconds, stop them from climbing up the wall, because Genji and Hanzo only climb so far up an object. So here we're going to go, if they have the tag, we're going to set, and what we're going to set is climb time. And then what it's going to be set to is not 0. We're going to track how long it's been held down for. And then what we're going to do is from here, we're going to have another branch. And we're going to check if climb time, if it's not equal to 0, we want to continue going through. So if it's not equal to 0, we have another branch. And then we check from here if it's less than or equal to, and this is the time you want to climb up the wall, in this case 0.8. So let's go through this again. We want to see how long they're holding it down for. The moment they're holding it down for any time, we want to initiate this branch here. And we want to make sure that it's less than or equal to 0.8. I found that to be a really good time for climbing up the wall. Now, after this, we're going to do the bit which will actually launch our character up the wall. But before that, if we are holding space before we even get to the wall, currently we have it set up so it will automatically track our time. Which means when you hit the wall, our timer, our climb time might be something like 0.5, which means you have 0.3 seconds to climb up the wall. That's not really what we want. So we're going to make it that initially, when the climb time is not equal to 0, when the climb time is equal to 0, we want to make sure the climb time is set to 0 before this event occurs. So if we're holding space, it will not increase climb time by adding this here. And that is why I have this check here. The moment it is equal to 0 and we're colliding with it, it stops setting it to 0 and it allows us to climb up the wall. So this is going to reset that value. The last thing we're going to do is launch character. And we're going to go on the z-axis, something like 350. And we're actually going to override the x, y, and the z. Now, the reason why we're going to override them is, and I'll actually just show you, instead of just trying to explain it here, I'll show you why we're going to limit these. So let's turn that off for now, actually. Let's just leave it as is. And let's see if the system works. Before we can test anything, let's just drag over all that, press C. We'll call this the wall climb. And if you're a bit confused, don't worry, I always go over this once again at the end. It always makes more sense looking at it after you've got everything complete. Now, we need to have a wall to climb. So what we're going to do is in our scene, we're going to add a cube. And let's just scale this. And we want to go down to our tag. So tag. Now we used actor in our blueprint. So it should be actor. It could potentially be tags component. I'm just going to scroll down and I'm going to add it here. And we called it climbable. So if this one doesn't work, all I have to do is check the other one. Alright, so nope. I don't think it's debugging. Oh, same mistake I always make. Make sure in your game mode that you change this to the Hanzo controller. Compile, save, play. And you'll see these raycasts, these line traces in front of us. So we're colliding with this, hold space. And it's not climbing. So let's go back into here. Now, drag this over here. It potentially is not getting that tag, and we used actor. So I do believe on this, I'll call this wall. I believe I got this incorrect here. And what I was mentioning before was, if you have an actor, so we'll just type tag up here, you have to add it to the actor list. So let's just save that and hit play. And it launches us way too far up, but it worked. Let's check that out again. All right. That value is way too high. I thought that was what I used before. That's all right. Oh, actually, it is because of this. We'll set it something lower so I can demonstrate what happens if you don't override. So 15. Let's hit play. We climb up. So it needs a bit more force. Let's make it 20. Compile, save. Now, I'm going to show you why we need to override. So we can climb up it. Climb up. And one other thing, we have our mouse and movement. We can actually move, which is not good. So we're going to fix that because Hanzo and Genji can't do that. Now, I want to show you why we want to override those values. And you'll see exactly what I mean in a second. So I'm just going to make the second wall here. And it looks like, hey, we could probably climb that, right? You just jump off this block onto that one. It's like a little cool platforming challenge. Not exactly. Watch this. We had downward momentum. So when we were trying to climb up it after jumping, even this is this difficult. This is actually difficult to climb up. It's actually, we still have downward momentum on the Z, downward velocity, which is not good. The reason why we want to override the Z and the X and Y is so the launch character overrides this current Z value, current Z. Oh, what's happening? Oh, now it's not high enough because we're just adding 15. So let me explain this. When you jump and you're not overriding the Z, it's adding to your current velocity, which is why you can scale the wall. If you override it, you need a higher launch velocity, but that means gravity won't take a hold of you when you're jumping from one surface onto another, like we tried to do when we jumped from this object to this object. So now if I was to override those and set it to something, well, something like, let's just try 80. We'll probably have to play around with this for a bit. Nowhere near enough. I think my original value that I had earlier was 350. Let's see how that goes. Still needs more. Let's try something 400. So we'll jump into it, and there we go. Jump into it, and there we go. So instead of using our current Z, we're overriding it so we can actually climb up walls properly. And climb, climb. Easy. All right. So now that we have the climbing mechanic done, all we want to do is fix up our mouse input and our keyboard input. So we can't just climb forever. how we are going to do that is we're going to go to mouse input, and we just need to have a condition set up so we can't climb forever, which will be really easy to set up. The condition here is that we have a branch, and we have another branch. And all we want to check is if climb time is equal to 0, which means, whoops, equal float. If climb time is equal to 0, that means we can freely rotate the mouse and look around. We're going to do the exact same system for movement, which will be in here. So I'm just going to drag this back a bit so we have a bit more room to work with. And the exact same system, we're going to branch, and if the climb time is equal to 0, which means we're not climbing, we can freely move around. If the climb time obviously is not equal to 0, then we don't want to be able to freely move around. So chuck that into there. And let's see how this works. Yep, and now I can't move my mouse or my A and D keys whilst climbing. So the great thing about this is if I move to a wall and I jump while holding D, I just go straight up, and it looks so much smoother when I can't move my character around the wall climbing. And what you could do now is you could add in hands if you really wanted, so you could actually scale up the walls. So let's just extend this a bit. Let's add a bit more to this level while we're here. So let's bring that to a 90-degree angle. Let's drag this out. We'll make a quick little obstacle course to try out this cool new mechanic. And I'm going to borrow from this bit over here. Remember, if your level is different, just do something similar to what I'm doing. So we're going to make it so you have to climb up these boxes and jump to and from these boxes. Now, if you had the dash as well, this would be really, really cool. The dash is the first ever tutorial I did with the Genji. So I'll put it something like here. This will be the objective, so you want the player to get onto this. I'm going to add another climbable wall over here. And I'll make this just a bit higher. So jump from here to here, and then onto this wall, and then we can get onto this platform, which will be over here. Alright, let's try it out. So we'll climb up that, we'll climb up here, and just a little we'll climb up, and then jump over here. This one would feel a bit better if the if we increase the height. Let's try that again. Wall climb, then wall climb. Nice. So that's the wall climbing mechanic. It's quite simple. We need to include a death zone sometime. But yeah, it's quite simple, and we have it set to climbable. So obviously we can't climb these walls, but we can climb anything set to climbable. No real bugs with it that I have found personally. The launch character is really smooth. You can just set this value here to whatever you want. This launch character value here. And just really quickly, in case anyone wanted a thorough explanation, just to go over this one more time. Every event tick, so every frame, every second, every delta time, we're going to line trace from our player to the end location, which is set up here. So if you want the character to be able to climb from even further away, you could set it to something like here. I just undid that, hopefully. Oops. Yep, I did. Good. And after that, we check if the object we're climbing has a tag climbable. If it doesn't, set the climb time back to 0. If it does, then we're going to set the climb time depending on how long the player's been holding the button down. Then we're going to branch over here. If the climb time is less than 0.8, this is the amount of time we want to climb for. So if it's less than 0.8, branch here. And then if this is true, climb up the wall. If this is false, it will do nothing, but it will no longer climb. And that's about it. That's the wall climbing mechanic done. So you've got Tracer's Recall, you got wall climbing, you got dashing, double jumping. We have quite a few cool mechanics that you can play around with, and you can probably make a small, really fun game out of these by now. In terms of the next tutorial, let me know what you guys want to see. I was interested in perhaps doing the Half-Life 2 gravity gun, if you guys are into that. A lot of people requested Portal. I'm quite busy at the moment, so I'm not sure if I have the time, but definitely down the line, I want to get into Portal. If you have other game suggestions to look into, like someone mentioned PsyOps, which is really cool, and when we do our third-person character series, we're going to get into PsyOps. So yeah, just leave me some suggestions below. If you're on my Patreon, I listen to your suggestions more, if they're obviously within scope. So if you would like to support the series and anything else I do, feel free to support me on Patreon. And I have some really exciting announcements coming soon in terms of a VR project that I'm currently working on, which I'm going to share with all of you. And I'm going to be posting development vlogs. So if you'd like to see the behind the scenes of someone developing a VR game from start to end and their journey onto Steam, then let me know, because that's something I'm pretty excited about doing a series like that. And let me know if you guys would support that. So anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you got something useful out of this. And remember, impossible. Pursue what is important to you, because impossible is just a mindset. And I'll see you guys in the next video.